What if the biggest science fiction failures were not the ones you remember? What if they were the ones buried quietly after millions were spent chasing the future? Television has always promised worlds beyond imagination. But sometimes those worlds collapse before they even begin. In this countdown, we uncover 14 made-for-TV sci-fi disasters that lost fortunes, shook networks, and proved that ambition alone is never enough. Stay with me because the number one entry changed how television takes risks forever. Number 14, Genesis 2, 1973. Something strange was happening inside NBC in the early 70s. The network believed lightning could strike twice. They had already witnessed the cultural shockwave of Star Trek. Now they handed its creator Gene Roddenberry another chance to rebuild the future. Genesis 2 was not just a pilot, it was an investment in a new television universe. Underground cities. A post-apocalyptic world. A man waking up centuries later to rebuild civilization. Every frame carried ambition that felt larger than television itself. But here is where everything started to crack. The audience did not connect. The pacing felt distant. The ideas were bold, but the execution felt cold. NBC had spent heavily expecting a long-running franchise. What they received was silence. Ratings dropped. Interest faded. The dream collapsed before it even began. Behind the scenes, executives faced a harsh realization. High-concept science fiction could not simply recreate past success. Genesis 2 became an expensive lesson in overconfidence. The network did not just lose money. It lost faith in a vision that once defined its future. And yet, this failure did not end the experiment. It only made the next gamble even riskier. Number 13, Planet Earth 1974. Instead of walking away, NBC doubled down. Planet Earth was not a fresh idea. It was a direct attempt to salvage the wreckage of Genesis 2. Same world, similar themes. A reworked vision designed to fix what had gone wrong. In theory, this was a second chance. In reality, it was a deeper gamble. The production scale remained ambitious. Costumes, sets, futuristic societies trying to rise from ruin. Everything suggested confidence. But beneath the surface, there was hesitation. The network was no longer chasing innovation. It was chasing recovery. Viewers noticed. The story felt like an echo rather than a breakthrough. Characters lacked impact. The sense of discovery was gone. Ratings told the truth quickly and brutally. Audiences had already moved on. What NBC hoped would be redemption turned into confirmation of failure. Financially, the damage deepened. 2 expensive pilots. No series, no return. Executives were now forced to confront a painful reality. The Roddenberry television universe experiment was collapsing in real time. Planet Earth did something more dangerous than losing money. It erased confidence. It convinced decision-makers that even proven creators could not guarantee success in science fiction television. Number 12. The Questor Tapes 1974. Before audiences ever had a chance to reject it, something far more damaging happened. The project began to collapse from within. The Questor Tapes was designed as a bold leap forward, an artificial human searching for identity in a world that feared him. It carried the fingerprints of Gene Roddenberry once again. NBC expected another intelligent sci-fi property that could grow into a long-running series. Money was committed. Expectations were high. The blueprint was clear. Then everything broke. Creative disagreements turned into full-scale conflict. Network executives wanted control. Roddenberry resisted. Scripts were altered. Direction shifted. Trust disappeared. What should have been a focused vision became a fractured production where no one agreed on the final shape. The result was visible on screen. The film felt incomplete. Ideas were present but never fully realized. Characters existed but lacked cohesion. Audiences were confused rather than engaged. Ratings failed to justify the investment. But the real damage had already been done long before broadcast. NBC pulled the plug immediately. No continuation, no recovery. Just a quiet shutdown. Financial loss was only part of the story. The greater cost was the breakdown between creator and network. The Questor Tapes proved that even strong concepts cannot survive internal sabotage. It marked the moment when ambition collided with control and both sides walked away with nothing. Number 11. Earth Star Voyager 1988. By the late 80s, television had changed. Science fiction was no longer experimental, it was becoming spectacle, and the Walt Disney Company decided to enter that arena with full force. Earthstar Voyager was not a small project. It was a statement. A two-part television event filled with advanced spacecraft design, futuristic storytelling, and a scale rarely seen on TV at the time. The intention was obvious. Launch a franchise, build a universe. Compete with cinematic science fiction on a television screen. The budget reflected that ambition. Sets were elaborate, effects pushed beyond what television could comfortably sustain. Production costs climbed steadily. Disney was not testing the waters. It was diving headfirst into deep risk territory. Then the audience response arrived. Viewership failed to match expectations. Engagement dropped quickly. The excitement Disney had counted on never materialized. Without strong ratings, there was no justification for continuation. The planned series quietly disappeared before it could even begin. The financial impact was immediate. A high investment with no long-term return. A large-scale vision reduced to a forgotten experiment. Earthstar Voyager revealed a hard truth. Television audiences would not automatically reward ambition. Bigger did not mean better. And for Disney, this was not just a failed project. It was a warning that even industry giants could miscalculate the future of science fiction. Number 10. The Starlost 1973. The idea was bigger than the system that tried to contain it. The Starlost imagined a massive generational ship drifting through space with its passengers unaware of their fate. It came from the mind of Harlan Ellison, who envisioned a layered world filled with hidden societies and philosophical depth. This was not simple science fiction. It demanded scale and precision. But the production could not keep up. Budget limits forced compromises that weakened the vision. Scripts were altered, the direction shifted. The original structure began to collapse. Ellison became so frustrated that he removed his name from the project. That decision alone revealed how severe the breakdown had become. What reached viewers felt unfinished. The world lacked cohesion. The storytelling struggled to hold attention. Audiences failed to connect with a concept that never fully formed on screen. Ratings dropped quickly, and the network saw no future in continuing. Financially, the loss was unavoidable. Resources had been poured into a project that required far more support than it received. Without that support, the entire structure failed. The Starlost stands as a warning. Ambition without stability leads to collapse. Number 9. Space Above and Beyond Ninetine, 985. This was meant to bring war into the future with intensity and realism. Space Above and Beyond focused on soldiers fighting in an interstellar conflict. It avoided fantasy and leaned into sacrifice and discipline. The tone was serious, almost cinematic. It treated science fiction as grounded drama rather than spectacle. That approach raised the cost. Each episode required detailed world building, battle sequences, effects that pushed television limits. Fox invested heavily, expecting a long-running series that could justify the expense. But the audience response remained uneven. The tone demanded attention and patience. It was not designed for casual viewing. While a loyal fan base formed, it was not large enough to sustain the growing financial pressure behind the scenes. Ratings never stabilized. As viewership declined, the cost remained constant. That imbalance forced a decision. Even a strong concept cannot survive without numbers to support it. Cancellation arrived after one season. The loss extended beyond production. Sets, designs, future storylines all became unusable. Space Above and Beyond proved that quality alone cannot guarantee survival. Number 8. seaQuest DSV 918 983. At launch, it carried the weight of expectation few shows could match. seaQuest DSV had the backing of Steven Spielberg and a concept built around a futuristic submarine exploring unknown depths. It combined science fiction with environmental themes and positioned itself as a flagship series. The investment reflected that ambition. Underwater sequences, elaborate sets, and advanced effects. Each episode demanded significant resources. NBC expected long-term success to balance the cost, but the identity never settled. The show shifted between tones: science, fiction, family drama, darker themes. This inconsistency confused audiences. Viewers struggled to understand what the show wanted to be. ratings began to fall. As numbers declined, the high production cost became harder to justify. Attempts to adjust the direction only increased instability. The show drifted further from its original promise. Eventually, cancellation became unavoidable. Years of investment failed to deliver lasting return. seaQuest DSV shows that scale without clarity leads to slow collapse. Number 7, Alien 1979. Capitalizing on the success of Star Wars, Alien Run was a high-octane sci-fi series set in a galaxy far from Earth, filled with alien races, cosmic politics, and intergalactic warfare. The show aimed to provide all the action and adventure sci-fi fans craved, but struggled to find a balance between spectacle and storytelling. The special effects were groundbreaking for the time, but the characters lacked depth, and the plot felt more like a series of disconnected action sequences rather than a coherent story. The budget quickly spiraled out of control as the need for constant set changes and elaborate special effects pushed production costs to unsustainable levels. Despite the flashy visuals, Alien Run failed to capture the imagination of viewers, and ratings quickly plummeted. The network pulled the plug on the series after just a few episodes, leaving the show with a substantial financial loss. The failure of Alien Run was a clear message to studios about the dangers of investing heavily in a flashy premise without a solid foundation. It served as a painful reminder that action-packed visuals alone couldn't save a show from poor writing and lack of viewer connection. Number 6. Beyond the Stars, 1989. Beyond the Stars was conceived as a cutting-edge sci-fi series that explored the complexities of human consciousness, artificial intelligence, and the search for extraterrestrial life. With its polished production and high expectations, the series initially seemed like a sure bet for success. However, as the episodes unfolded, it became clear that the show was not connecting with viewers. The intricate, philosophical themes often felt forced, and the slow pacing failed to engage the audience. Instead of captivating viewers with the possibilities of space exploration and artificial intelligence, Beyond the Stars left them frustrated and disengaged. The heavy reliance on deep, abstract storytelling alienated casual viewers, and the lack of action or immediate conflict made it hard for the show to build momentum. After just one season, the show was canceled, leaving the network with substantial financial losses. Despite the early promise of Beyond the Stars, it was ultimately a case of ambition without execution. The show became another casualty in the ongoing battle between high-concept sci-fi ideas and the practical realities of capturing and maintaining an audience's attention. Number 5. Threshold 2005. It started with urgency and a threat that demanded attention. Threshold introduced an alien signal capable of altering human behavior. The premise was immediate and unsettling. It promised a serialized mystery that could expand over time. CBS backed it as a major project with strong creative leadership, including Brannon Braga. The foundation looked solid: a capable cast, a long-term narrative plan, a heavy promotion. Everything pointed towards sustained success. The network expected the audience to stay engaged as the story unfolded. But momentum never held. Initial curiosity did not convert into stable viewership. Episodes aired, but retention dropped. Serialized storytelling depends on consistency. Once that breaks, the structure weakens quickly. Behind the scenes, the pressure increased. Production continued while audience numbers declined. The gap between cost and return widened. Without growth, the model became unsustainable. CBS acted quickly. The show was pulled before completing its run. Remaining episodes were sidelined. The story left unfinished. Investment locked into a project that could not expand. Threshold proved that even strong ideas collapse when timing and audience engagement fail. Number 4. Virtuality 2009. Sometimes a project does not fail in front of the audience. It fails before the audience is even allowed to decide. Virtuality carried serious weight from the beginning. It was created by Ronald D. Moore, a name that had already reshaped modern television science fiction. Expectations were not cautious. They were confident. The concept felt timely. A deep space mission where the crew escapes into virtual simulations to cope with isolation, reality blending with illusion, psychological tension layered over science fiction. It had all the ingredients of a modern series. And Fox invested accordingly. The pilot was produced with scale and detail that signaled long-term commitment. This was not a test, it was a launch. Sets were constructed with precision. Visual storytelling carried cinematic ambition. Everything pointed toward a multi-season future. Then something unexpected happened. Doubt. Network hesitation began to grow. Concerns about tone, concerns about audience reach, concerns about whether the concept was too complex for mainstream viewers. The same elements that made Virtuality unique became reasons for caution. The decision arrived quietly but decisively. No series order. The pilot aired as a standalone piece. No continuation, no expansion, just a single glimpse of what could have been. The investment remained, but the return disappeared. Financially, it was a direct loss, a fully funded launch that never moved beyond its starting point. But the deeper impact was strategic. It reinforced a growing fear within networks that ambitious science fiction might not translate into reliable viewership. Virtuality did not collapse over time. It was stopped before it could even begin. Number 3, FlashForward, 2009. FlashForward was one of the most hyped sci-fi series of its time, built around the intriguing concept of a global blackout where every person on Earth sees a vision of their future. With a strong premise and an early surge in viewership, the show seemed destined for success. The mystery of the blackout and the question of how it would all unfold captivated audiences initially. However, as the narrative grew more complex and the storylines expanded, FlashForward quickly began to struggle. The web of characters and plot twists became too intricate, leaving viewers confused and alienated. Many found themselves unable to keep up with the constantly shifting narrative, and the mystery failed to maintain its appeal as the series progressed. Despite efforts to rework the pacing and streamline the plot, the show couldn't recover from its initial missteps. Viewership began to drop, and by the end of the first season, it was clear that the audience had moved on. The show was canceled, leaving ABC with a substantial financial loss. The failure of FlashForward highlighted the risks involved with high-concept, ambitious television. In trying to juggle multiple narratives and unanswered questions, the series overcomplicated itself and failed to maintain consistent engagement with viewers. Ultimately, FlashForward serves as a cautionary tale of how too many ideas, without a clear, manageable structure, can lead to a swift downfall. Number 2. Ascension, 2014. Ascension was marketed as a modern sci-fi epic, with the premise of a generational spaceship sent on a secret mission to colonize a distant planet. The slick production and polished visuals initially drew viewers in, and the mystery surrounding the mission and the characters seemed to promise a gripping narrative. However, as the series progressed, it became apparent that the show struggled to deliver on its high-concept ideas. The narrative, initially intriguing, soon became bogged down with a lack of meaningful payoff and twists that felt more like gimmicks than impactful revelations. While the production values remained strong throughout, the storytelling couldn't live up to the expectations set by the promotional material. The pacing was uneven, and the show's complex narrative failed to engage audiences as intended. With minimal character development and a lack of cohesion in its plot, the show struggled to maintain momentum. Despite its potential, Ascension was canceled after only 6 episodes, leaving its story incomplete. The cancellation resulted in a significant financial loss for the network, as millions had been invested in the project with little return. Ascension served as a sharp reminder that a polished production alone isn't enough to carry a show. Without strong character development, consistent pacing, and a compelling narrative, even the most ambitious concepts can falter. The series ultimately proved that hype and high production values can't always make up for weak storytelling. Number 1. Terra Nova, 2011. Terra Nova was one of the most ambitious and expensive TV productions of its time, with an enormous budget, massive sets, and Steven Spielberg's backing. The concept was enticing, humanity escaping a dying Earth by traveling back to prehistoric times to create a new civilization. Dinosaurs, time travel, and an epic narrative promised an unforgettable viewing experience. However, despite the visual spectacle, the series struggled to live up to its promises. The pacing was inconsistent, and the characters were thinly developed, making it difficult for viewers to emotionally invest in the story. While the show had impressive effects and large-scale production values, the narrative failed to resonate with audiences. The excitement from the initial premise quickly faded as viewers were left with a shallow plot and an underdeveloped emotional core. Ratings plummeted as the show continued, and with the high costs of production steadily rising, it became clear that the network could not justify continuing the series. After just one season, Terra Nova was canceled, leaving behind massive financial losses. The series became a cautionary tale about how even the biggest budgets and the most high-profile productions can fail if they don't connect with viewers on a deeper level. It demonstrated that while big spectacle can attract attention, it doesn't guarantee sustained success or long-term viewership. Terra Nova serves as a reminder that ambitious sci-fi projects need more than just visual effects. They need compelling storytelling, relatable characters, and a narrative that hooks the audience. The financial loss was significant, tens of millions invested with limited long-term return. But the deeper impact was psychological. Terra Nova proved that television had limits, that even the biggest names and boldest ideas could not override the economics of sustained production. These stories are not just about failure. They are about risk, ambition, and the thin line between vision and collapse. Some ideas were too early, some were too expensive, and some simply lost their way. If this surprised you, then you already know what to do.